excited.
Hello, everyone. This is Renee Piani. Welcome back to Get Real About Love. And this month is the month of love, the month where people are sharing their passions about their love lives. And I had connected with this beautiful woman, Shawna Cale, and she is Shawna Cale. She's an exceptional health expert. She's written an amazing book. We're going to talk to her not only about how love is important for romance, but love is important for your health, right? Your health and your wellness and the balance in your life. And unbeknownst to her, I've been speaking about the art of balancing love, life, family, and business. And within many families during this challenging time, health has been a big issue for many, many people. And the fact that we mentally are separated from the ones that we love during this time. And many people are suffering alone. So we are so honored to bring this beautiful woman on to share her wisdom, talk about her book that she wrote. And welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. You look lovely today, and we're both in our pink.
Yes.
So what is the significance? I know you wrote a book that's in pink. You're wearing pink. I see your beautiful picture in pink. And as a physical therapist, who would think that you'd be this gorgeous on the air, right? You are helping people with health, but you look radiant. So tell us, how did you start this whole mission that you're on? What drove you to this?
Well, the color pink, or what drove me to the mission of exceptional?
Well, first of all, the color pink. We could talk about that first, but I think it's part of your mission is that joyful exuberance that, you send out. And I think pink is a part of colors are really, energetic. So I see you as a pink person.
Well, the pink itself came about with a formula that I feel like the Lord gave me in 2011 called the exceptional formula. And the E is for emotional in there. And I picked colors for each part of the mnemonic. And pink was the emotional part. And as I was going through my own journey, I realized that our emotions really connect our spirit and our physical body. And so it was kind of like I don't want to know if I call it the missing piece, but it was the connecting piece. And when I wear pink, I feel good. And, that's kind of an emotion. I said for years, I just want to feel better. I didn't know what that meant. Part of it was physically feel better. Part of it was, emotionally feel better. I just wanted to feel better. And so hot pink it's that color that makes me feel better. I feel good in pink. So I do wear it a lot. I do wear other colors too. But when we were talking earlier about the color of my book, that's just how I envisioned it throughout. And even though it's about exercise and it's about our spiritual beings and our physical beings, it's the emotional part that connects it together that I just felt like the book needed to be pink.
I love it. Well, I'm going to can you show me your book? I want to show you mine. You show me yours. So it's Bye Bye Normal. How did you say it? Bye Bye Normal.
So it's Bye Bye Normal, Hello Exceptional, living a life of less stress and more energy.
We all need that right now. The mothers, the people that are home with their kids, everybody that's home alone, we all need that. And people are struggling not only with loneliness, but they're dealing with health issues, feeling depressed, and they don't have any energy, and they're wondering why. So I deal with matters of the heart, and you're dealing with the energy part, and it's all tied together. So that's why as a love designer, I help people to really take a look at all aspects of their life. And I like to bring experts on that have even more, knowledge about energy. I'm really into energy work and energy exercises and meditations and all that. So we're aligned on a lot of things, but I wanted to have one of the experts in this. So I know you've done so much. You talk about childhood trauma and things that block us. So we're going to get into some of these topics because right now the country's in trauma, the world's in trauma. So what advice do you have for the people that are out there right now that your book could help with? Some of your tips on that. That would be helpful.
Well, I know for me as a physical therapist for many years, since 1993, is I always looked at the physical body. So I tried to help fix people, and their physical limitations and stuff. And some people, what we did worked. Exercise is something that I highly recommend for everybody. Most people, it's like walking is an exercise. If you do nothing else, walking is going to take you from now to the grave. Like, it is something that is functional and important, and something that, I mean, that was part of my job working in hospitals, was just getting people up and walking again. But there were times that there were things that were preventing people from taking those next steps. If it was literally getting up out of bed and taking a step, or just a next step in life. And I had to go through my own personal journey to be able to really see, what I call our spiritual being we believe, our beliefs about not only the world around us, but the beliefs about ourselves. That, they say that we form these beliefs in the first few years of our life, and it affects everything as we go forward if we believe that belief, even if we don't know that that's what we're living from. And so, my story is just really learning what, in 2011, I feel like God gave me what's called the exceptional formula, and it's exercise, it's our spiritual being, it's our emotional being. So I went through a whole series of experiences learning about my emotions, which I thought you were just supposed to pretend like they didn't exist, and you just push them down and you hold them in, and till they come up like a volcano. So I talk about my 20s and 30s being my hormonal emotional roller coaster years. I mean, I was up and down all around. My husband stuck by me through it all. So, I love him for that. And then, it came full circle back to the physical side of things. I, as a physical therapist, had my own physical issues that nobody seemed to be able to fix. I couldn't fix, went to every continuing education class to fix an area in my back that appeared like there was nothing wrong, but I felt it like, it was there, and found that there was an emotional connection to it. Going back to the pink, it's like everything comes back to that emotional connection. And so, one of the things I really did not pick up on myself, and that now in the last 10 years, I've realized about women, much like me, maybe like you too, is that we can see other people in stress. We can see other people that, their problems and how they're handling it, but so often we don't see it in ourselves. And I did not realize how stressed out I was. Part of it being my own childhood trauma, that I wasn't dealing with, because again, I was pushing it down and pretending like it didn't exist. I wasn't aware of the overwhelm that I was feeling with the life that I was choosing to live, that, I could be super mom, super woman, super PT, super everything, and not taking care of myself. And then there was, just that level of stress that was day to day that I thought was normal, because that was what our world tells us, right? Like, it's just normal to be stressed out.
Well, how many children do you have?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
How many children do you have? I
Yeah,
mean, you're a
so
mom, you're an author, you're a Wonder Woman, you're a, all these things. And when I speak at conferences, I talk about that Wonder Woman and how our age group of women were wired to do and do and do. And if you look at, in my book, I talk about the love lineage, the power of the lineage of your family and the
yeah,
culture, and how it wires us to continually keep going and going and rush and go, 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 right? So
yeah.
it sounds like you got wired a certain way,
Mhm.
and people get wired about health and wellness just like they do about love. So it all correlates together. When
Yeah,
people don't take care of their health, a lot of times they had a mom that didn't love herself, or a father that wasn't taking care of himself. So they kind of followed suit
right.
in the pattern. So is that something that you can see? I mean, the world is full of stress, and you have this question, how do you have less stress during now, like right now?
Right.
People are all asking me, and I'm online talking about it in my, as it relates to being home with your kids and your family, and how to balance love during this time. Because some people are like, love, really? And you're married, and we were going to talk about your love story too. So I
Yes.
don't want to forget that, because love is a big, important part of health as
Right.
far as I'm concerned. So
Right.
what are your tips on having less stress during this
Yeah.
time?
Well, for one, I've learned that the things around us, our circumstances, are really stressors when we are stressed, it's when we're taking those storms, that stress that's coming on the outside, and we bring it inward. And so there are so many things that we can do to help lower that stress. Part of it not being bring everything inside, but going back to the superwoman thing is, yeah, I'm a mom. My oldest is 24, my daughter is 20, and my youngest is 14. So there was a 10-year span between the oldest and the youngest. I homeschooled them from the time my oldest was 8 and my youngest one I'm still. So I think I'm at year like 16 or 17 now on homeschooling. At the same time, I felt like not only did I need to work to bring in, some finances and stuff so we could enjoy the life we wanted to live, right? But also just that need uh, to do what I love to do. I love to help patients and clients, get better. And so it was this whole balancing act that we look at. But what I found is it wasn't that I was doing a terrible job of balancing things out here because everybody thought I was doing fine, right? It was the internal balancing that was having the issues, and most of it stemming from how I felt about myself. So since love is like your thing that you talk about, one of the things that's funny is I had 3 miscarriages. That's not funny part, but 3 miscarriages in a 10-year period. And that last one in 2010 is when I was in a place that I think a lot of people now, especially in 2020 with the whole COVID thing, I saw how stressed out people were and how scared and fearful. That's how I was back in 2010. Like 2020 was not a bad year for me. Like, yeah, the circumstances are not fun. They weren't easy, but because of the internal work that I've done, I was able to handle that. My life in 2010 looked perfect on the outside, unlike, 2020, but inside was where my storm was. And I wanted to run away from myself. And that's really difficult to do. It's really hard to run away from yourself, So we can protect ourselves from COVID. There are things that we can do, I mean, yes, it's something scary, but when not only do we have that external, something like COVID and all the other issues going on, but we have this internal storm going in, it's like this battle that people are dealing with right now. And they don't realize that that battle is stress and that there are things that they can do. For me on my journey, the last 10 years, because it has been a 10-year journey and it will be another 10, 20, or 30 years. Like I know there is not a destination. Like my journey will end when I'm buried. Is you
I
talk
know.
about,
Once you're on your mission, you're never going to stop. You could be an old
yeah,
lady saying, you need to get some sun. I can just see you now. Or
yeah,
get the essential oils and put it in
yes,
your pillow at night so you can sleep. I just see you doing that. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
how can people avoid some stress? What are some, like I see your oils in the back there with your little
yeah.
heart. Is that one of your tricks of the trade?
It's definitely one of my tools. For me, the oils first came about just helping me get rid of some of the toxins that were in my home. I found for myself that one thing, I have MTHFR. I'm not sure if you've heard of that genetic SNP, but I don't detoxify well. So toxins in my home really affect me, not only physically, but they affect me emotionally. So when we don't feel good physically, then we're not able to handle as much. So when I started taking some of the toxins out of my home, whether it was the cleaners I was using, the shampoo, all the makeup, the perfumes, the body sprays, the deodorant, like all those layers that we put on. I used to wake up and say I was done. Like I was to here with it before anything else happened. So it only took like what my kids could be perfect. And one person could say one thing and my my lid would flip, I would flip out. It was because I was so toxic, I couldn't handle it. And part of it was my own toxic emotions that I brought along with me. Part of it was the toxins in the air. So, yes, essential oils have played a really big part. But the key to the essential oils for me has really been using them to release those emotional patterns that I had going on. And so I use them for myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I Also, as a physical therapist, think that exercise is a big stress tool. Most people think I am too tired, I am too stressed out, I'm too this, too that to exercise, when a lot of times that movement is what allows us to release that stress that we've been building up. And so, we can let it go, but we have to let it go. And there are things that we were meant to do that. So, that's also sleep. Like a lot of people, they're stressed out, they're laying in bed and they can't go to sleep at night because they're so stressed out, which then just keeps that circle of stress going, because now that they haven't slept good, they wake up tired in the morning. So now they're more stressed about being tired all day. When am I going to be able to get back to bed? And it's just this vicious circle. So, using the things that really we all know, the things I share in my book, people are like, I know I need to do that, but I walk through more of how we can put those into our daily life. Like, it really doesn't take more time. Like we think, oh, if I stay up later, I'll have more time, right? Well, if you go to bed, you'll be able to be more productive the next day and get things done.
That's great. Well, one of the things that, like, there's all these great questions, but you have this question about how do you get more energy? What would you say is the number one thing to get more energy? What would that be?
Well, I
I have
say
a few thoughts myself I would like to share. Just I'm curious because you're the
yeah.
more of the expert on this.
I say that energy begets energy. So often it's just taking that first step. Again, is that first step taking a step walking? That's energy moving. Is it releasing an emotion, which is energy in motion that we have that's going within that may be blocking us from our next step? So, really, I think everybody just has to find the one step, the first thing that they're willing to do to regain that energy. And when they take that step, it's like the domino effect. Then it's like, oh, now I've got the
It
energy
starts
going.
the
Now I can
engine.
take the next step and the next. And before they know it, just like that domino effect, they were here and now they're here. And then it's like, oh, I'm doing more than I was doing then, but I have more energy. How is that? Energy begets energy. When we sit and do nothing, it's that's an energy sucker.
We're aligned on these practices because I know as I'm married and I have, a stepson and I have my dog who's been ill. I have a friend that's going through cancer right now. There's been a lot recently
Mhm.
on me. And I wanted to talk about this and how it relates because the stresses that a lot of people are feeling currently at this moment. Like my photographer's in town and she came from Maui. Her father is very ill with a heart condition. And then other people, I think this book that you have could really help not only the people that need to hear it, that are sick or maybe not feeling well, but are the caretakers of those people.
Yes.
Because I wanted to share a personal experience because when you go through an illness, so people that are going through illnesses, autoimmune problems, my friend, we just did a Tata party. She's having her breast removed because of breast cancer. And the stressors on her mentally, the people that are going through illness, but then there's the people caring for them. How do you stay in balance? So I went through not only being somebody sick and having to ask for help, which isn't for people that are givers, right? You're a giver
Yeah.
and giving
It's hard.
people the people that I find that are stressed in my work, because most of the workaholic Wonder Women and Supermen out there, a lot of them don't have time for love, right? So then they have all the stress from work, all the stress from parent stuff, and all the stress from, maybe a parent that they can't see or their kids that have COVID or whatever is going on in people's lives right now. And if you don't have a balanced day-to-day system in place, and I teach something similar, but it just came out of me getting sick. But
Right.
the point that I'm asking you is, as a caretaker person, if
Mhm.
you're, when now I've been helping my friend prepare for the hospital, getting food prepared for her, had a Tata party, and now we're taking her to the hospital. But a lot of people are not taught how to take care of themselves when they're taking care of other people, and then it brings them down. It
Right.
brings them down. So in my book, I had a chapter about my best friend who was a workaholic, and most of the people that are out in our world, all these Wonder Women and Supermen that are doing these magical, online creations of reinventing, we're all doing this stuff. Many of us are still in that pace, even though we're not at work. And I know myself and you and Vanessa and all the people that joined us together, some of us are still in the pattern, even though COVID happened. And I think COVID happened to slow our asses down, okay? To listen to people like you, to people like me about balancing love. You're talking about balancing health, right? But they both relate. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you have a marriage, you have kids, you have to circulate that love with your children, your husband, and your clients. So how do you do that? What is your magic formula for that? Because that's what I think most of the people that are listening to this on LinkedIn, all my Wonder Women and busy executives that I work with to help them find love, because they might carve out 10 minutes for love. And then they go, I want to find somebody. I go, we only spend 10 minutes on it every day. Just your health and your love life, you have to make it a priority, right? So you seem to have happy marriage, because we talked about it, how many years you were married. So how do you balance those things? Like, give me like 3 things that you do.
Let me back up to 2010. All right, when I wasn't balancing things. So I found myself in an ambulance, and the paramedics were putting electrodes on my chest. Okay. Now, to back up, my husband the night before had taken me to the hospital after a miscarriage. I've been in the medical field at that point for almost 20 years. My husband was in the medical field. They sent me home, said to call my doctor the next day, and I was in bed bleeding to death, unaware that that was because I always thought those were stupid people. People, how do, in today's world in 2010 at the time, how can someone bleed to death? Well, it's really easy when you're thinking about everybody else and not yourself. And so, I told my husband, go ahead and go to work, cancel your patients. He came home after that. My mom came to watch the kids. I'm like, Mom, I'm fine. Just go take care of the kids, because I was homeschooling. So all 3 of them were home. What people today are dealing with, I was dealing with back then in 2010, because that was my life. And I'm in the ambulance, and he's putting these electrodes on. And I'm like, I know what he's doing. Like, my brain was aware enough, and stuff. And he goes, I know that you're awake. We can't get a line in you. So they couldn't get an IV in me. They couldn't get my blood pressure. He said, we just want to be prepared. And I said at that moment, should I be praying for myself? Because I had been praying for my kids. I didn't want them to be afraid and fearful that Mom's in an ambulance, what's going on. My mom was scared, my husband. Like, I was thinking about everybody else and hadn't even thought about, hey, maybe you should say a little prayer for yourself, right? And the paramedic said,
no, we're not allowed to do that. But of course,
no,
no, we got to pray for everybody.
And so the paramedic was like, this would be a great time for that. And it was at that moment in the ambulance that I realized all the things I'd been telling my patients, all the things I wanted my husband to do, and all the things I wanted my, mom to do and my kids to do, everybody else that I was teaching and training to do, I wasn't doing myself. And so it was then that I learned I needed to fill my cup. So you asked for 3 things, that I needed to fill my cup before I could fill others up. And so it really, my number 1 is a morning routine. If I do not take time in my morning, then I have nothing to give the rest of the day. I'm going to be stressed out, overwhelmed. Most people don't think in the morning that they have time for a morning routine. I am like everybody else. Okay. There's nothing special about my life. I have, you asked how many kids. I have 3 kids, 24, 20, and 14. One of them is gone. 2 of them are still here. And with COVID, we're all here quite a bit, And so I do this morning, of all times, I'm doing my morning routine, and our fire alarm goes off. I'm like, I have to stop my routine to take care of, this. And it would be really easy, especially back then. Oh, guess I'm just done. It was like, no, hey, if we got this taken care of, it's back to my time. This is my time to take care of myself so that I can do the other things. And so really, knowing what you need to fill yourself up. And number two, giving yourself permission, because that was the hard part for me for so long, is I felt guilty anytime I took time for myself. Well, that guilt, anytime I would go ahead and do it, that guilt was just canceling out what I was doing, because I was holding on to this emotion of guilt and shame the whole time of, oh, I shouldn't be doing this for myself.
Where did that come from? Your mom, like your wiring in your family or something? Because I
I,
know I got wired to be a Wonder Woman by my aunts
yeah,
and great aunts and grandmothers and things like that.
I think part of it is genetic. I also think some of it is just our own personal personalities. If you look at the different Enneagram, I'm a one. If you look at, colors, I'm this green, red. Like there's all these different things that, that I've learned, and that just kind of fits into my personality. Sure, I think part of it is watching. But your big thing is about love. And so I would say number three, all right, is learning to love yourself, or in my case, love myself unconditionally. And I know for me, I never felt like I was enough for my husband. So, yes, we've been married 28 years. He has loved me, from the beginning. He's told me he's loved me. And I'd be like, but why? Like, why do you love me? I remember in the beginning days of, but, why do you love me? And he'd be, I just love you. It didn't have anything to do with what I did, which I thought that was what love was for so long. And it was really eye opening in the midst of me writing my book. So, it took me 10 years to write this book. I felt like in 2011, I was called to write it. And I probably could have written it in 2011 if I'd listened to the Lord and learned at the time, but I was resisting it, which is what we tend to do sometimes when things are difficult and we're going through this learning process. But one night as I was writing my book, I knew that there was a piece that I was still missing, and I didn't really know what it was. And I was on I was just messaging a friend of mine, and she told me to test myself. And I don't know if people out there have ever heard of the sway test, but to test myself for love and hate. Well, in my mind, I'm like, well, love is positive, hate is negative, right? I mean, we all know that, right? Love is positive, hate is negative. And I tested myself, and hate was negative and love was negative. And if I had done that 10 years ago, I probably would have like, well, how can love be a negative, right? I mean, how is that? But I had gone through enough of a process to really start asking myself and asking God, like, there has to be more to this. What is it? I was asking, well, do I believe, and this goes back to our beliefs, do I believe that God loves me? Yes, God loved me. That wasn't the belief. And what I came down to is when I heard the word love, I heard expectations, I heard conditions, I heard all the things that I needed to do to be loved. Back to, laying in the ambulance, praying for everybody else, because I thought that's what I needed to do. And it wasn't about taking care of myself, because I think we believe in this day and age that we're selfish if we're thinking of ourselves. And yes, I think we do need
On
to
your
survive.
culture too. I mean, the cultures, when I examine people's love, like their whole how they were imprinted about love, there must be some, like in our family, it was like the women do everything, the men, I'm Italian, the men sit and the women wait on them, and then my grandmother would say, and then they leave you for a younger woman, so you shouldn't trust any of them anyway. Now
Right.
that's not a good role model, so wherever you got that from,
Yes.
it's that, wow, if I love myself, that somebody's going to think I'm selfish or I'm not allowed to do that. And, as a person that I teach flirting classes and how to build confidence, but it's working with your own heart, like
Yeah.
whatever your heart was told sometimes, or what you saw. I did a TEDx about it called The Power of Your Love Lineage, and it
Yeah.
relates to self-love, right? So my book, Get Real About Love, ties in with yours because you need to get real about how you were wired about that. But health is on another level, right? Because if you're one of those narcissistic people that always works out or whatever, you're not giving love to your family. My grandma, blah, 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 blah. You can't take too much time for yourself. You got to take care of this first. So then you get to be put on the back burner and you're burned out by that time. And then you say, oh, whatever. And you gain weight and then you don't feel pretty. And then this is what happens in these marriages. And people call me and say, how do you keep it spicy? I'm married to a jock. He works out every other day for the last 47 years. I mean, he has a system, like you're saying, but most people will put that part on the back burner to achieve a goal. And that's what I see with these workaholics. So are your clients mainly workaholics that get burned out, would you say?
I would say most of my clients are women that, again, do not realize how much it is that they're doing. Like they are expecting so much from themselves that it's more than anybody can do, burning the candle from both ends, whether it's working outside of the home and then coming home and doing it all, working inside the home and then doing it all. But going back, and I think part of it is going back to that expectation of, I thought that's what was expected of me. And it's expectations that we put on ourselves. So, having that conversation, those weren't expectations that my husband, yes, there are certain things that he likes and enjoys for me to do. But, when it came time, he stood up and he took over some of those responsibilities. Or, you know what? If my house is not always 100% clean, it's okay. Right?
Get over it. He'll
Get
get over
over it.
it. Get over it.
And the part that I think was really hard is not only getting over it, but understanding that it's okay for me to love myself, even if I'm not perfect. It's okay to love myself, even if I didn't get everything done during the day, right? It's okay. It's even better than okay, right? It's exceptional to love myself for who I am. And it doesn't matter what I do, what I don't do, to really love myself unconditionally. And that's, the journey I feel like I took to be able to write the book, and the part that I want people to make sure that they understand. When I talk about bye normal, like people today are like, oh, I want normal to come back. And I'm like, really? Because, normal is stressed out. Normal is cancer.
Our world is completely stressed out. When you go to other countries, I went to, there's a picture here of my husband and I on our 10-year anniversary. We went to Paris, we went to Italy. And all of the people in Europe always say, you Americans, that's all you do is work. You're stressed out. They take time to eat. Italians, you know what they do? They close down their shops at 1:00 in the afternoon. I'm at a shop in Italy trying to buy a coat in Florence, right? And they're like, we have to go home. We eat, we make love, and then we come back to work. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Like maybe we should go do that, And, most people in America, we just go, go, go. And they think we're crazy. The French think we're crazy. The Russians, all of them, they're all, boo, 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 boo. It's crazy. So I've worked with all different nationalities and cultures through rapid dating. I did events for, I don't know, thousands of people all over the country. I was a total workaholic. The only reason that I met my husband, this is for people that are want to know a little bit about love, and I don't know about you, but I was 42 years old. I was running a company and wired I was flying here and here. Nobody could catch me. Nobody could catch me. And my mother would say, slow down. And my health was being taxed. It was. But she had to die for me to slow down, to go home to Delaware. And I ended up meeting my husband there because I got slowed down for a little while. So don't let a health scare take you down. Like you're talking about, warning people now. If you're feeling that, this is what I'm guessing, you had to have a heart attack practically to have your heart almost dead on the ambulance for you to go, I better do something different. Right. I had my mother die. And then just recently I had a tooth infection that went viral. I got a tooth infection that spread and it abscessed, and they cut it and it went viral through my whole body. And that was what woke me up again for the second time to really take a look at how much I was overgiving. And I started speaking about it. So that's why I resonate with your message. Your message is important, but you had to change beliefs. You had to change some core belief So
Yeah.
how did you do that? And is that what you do with your clients?
Yeah, that's really what I do with my clients and what I walk people through in my book. I call it flipping the penny principle. So I always keep a penny around as a reminder, but so often I think we look at things as, the head side of the penny and the tail side of the penny. There's, the good old poem, find a penny, pick it up, and all day long you'll have good luck. But people think of that negative side, and this goes perfect with what you were just saying, as, oh, don't pick up that, right? I don't even know where we got that. That's not how the poem goes. The poem actually says, pick it up and give it to a friend, and your luck will never end. But we never hear that part. We just hear, oh, if it's on the negative side, don't pick it up. I believe those negative experiences that we go through are exactly what we need to become who we were meant to become. And when we're
Absolutely.
able to see that, we're able to grow. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of the people, unfortunately, my goal is to get people before they go through their crisis. But unfortunately, most people are not willing to take that next step until they're at that point of, like I was in the ambulance, or, other people that, I mean, the ladies I write about in chapter 12 that went through my exceptional health masterclass, each of them had something that was pretty much like, I needed another side. And back to the penny is, we're both sides, right? We are the negative, we are the positive. But we so often think it's just the positive side, all the good things that happen, that we're worthy of. And we're worthy no matter what. This penny is worth the same whether I have it on the tail side or if I have it on the head side. Like, this penny is always going to be worth a penny, right? Not looking at the whole exchange of American money, but just as the coin itself. And I think that we forget that. And when, like you said, I mean, when we can be okay with where we're at, and you had to slow down because your mother died, right? After my miscarriage, and the doctor did all his good things to keep me alive, but then turned around and said, this is normal. And I'm like, no, this is not normal. If this is normal, normal's highly overrated, and I'm done with normal. Like, I'm ready for something else. And somewhere down the line in the next 6 months of that time is when this exceptional popped into my head, because I had patients that were on 20 to 30 medications telling me their health was good. I was on 0 medications. I had 0 diagnosis, but I had no energy. I wanted to run away from the perfect life that I'd always wanted, but I was like, I don't even know what to do with this life. I couldn't say I had good health. I didn't feel good. I wanted to feel better, but I didn't know like how to feel better. And the word exceptional, I was like, just popped into my head and became this beacon of something more. There is something more. We don't have to be stressed out. We can have the energy to do the things we love. And just like if the Italians and the French have time to sit down and eat and have sex and do all the things, why don't we? Like, we do. We choose not to because we choose other things before the life that we really want to live.
The career-driven person
Yeah.
is and I call it in my book the one-size syndrome. They want to achieve a certain goal. And then they say, well, when I do that, then I'm going to work out. Then I'm going to, or once I lose weight, once I get my apartment together. This is what they say to me, once my company gets off the ground. I said, well, guess what? Once your company gets off the ground, you're going to be running on the ground to take care of your company. So how's love going to fit into that slot? It's the same thing with health. So my husband says, I don't care. He marks everything down in his schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a talk about this, the balancing love, life, family, and business. And I did a whole health thing and a whole food thing. And so, but the main thing is, this is my question to this audience, my audience and yours, is what drove you to be like this? And why are you pushing yourself? I had to ask myself that. They literally, when this aneurysm, well, what happened was the tooth was infected. They didn't see it on an x-ray because it was in the bone, and it ate my bone, ate my jaw, and I got blood poisoning and got an aneurysm in my artery, and it almost killed me. So that was my second pretty big wake-up call. And I was out for 2 years. I couldn't speak. It affected my voice. And they gave me so many drugs because they hadn't found the infection. that my gut was messed up from it. So I wasn't able, now I can't absorb nutrients from my food because they ruin the gut, right? So all of these things that happen, it's interesting. I kept gut wise, like, if you're listening to her in your gut, that something in your body is warning you. But if you don't follow your intuition and not listen to maybe one opinion or two opinions, I went and got a bunch of opinions.
Yeah.
Everybody told me I was crazy. And I kept saying, it's this tooth. So you have to be your own health advocate, and you need to get steps like from this book that she has to really take care of yourself and listen to what's going on. But more importantly, I changed my whole life from that experience. I never wanted to go back to being a workaholic, even though I work a lot with people whose hearts are broken and divorce. And that's why I wanted to hear your love story, because you're a successful woman you have a marriage that's happy, your kids are healthy, and now you're balanced. But you always haven't been, right? You weren't always that way.
Right.
And when this happened to me with my thing, this was a few years ago, I was on the edge of really, I had to go in and get my artery cut out of my arm and an aneurysm this big in my little baby arm. And they had never done an operation like that. Yeah. But during that time, this is another thing I want to ask you. When people are sick, when people are down, they have you as a coach, but they may also need support, just like my friend that's going through cancer right now. Yeah. She's not good at asking for help. Yeah. So if you don't have somebody like you, Shawna, to guide you to take care of yourself, I'm sure part of your program would be like, hey, find role models that have what you want or have done what you need to do, like yourself, like me, or whatever, with love, or you with health. Right. Find people that can give you the juice that you need, because sometimes you're afraid to ask. So I became this girl's voice, asked all my girlfriends to get together. We had a ta-ta party for her. She's getting her breast removed tomorrow. I'm taking her to the hospital. But most people are afraid to be around people that are sick. So you've been around sick people. Do you notice that their friends are like, oh, I don't know what to do? People are so afraid to be around someone that might need help. So what do you advise them?
Yeah. I kind of see it from a different viewpoint. Maybe part of it is they're afraid, but I think so often we don't know what to do for them. And so they feel like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing. What is it they need? And like you said, most people have such a hard time asking that they're waiting for this person to ask them, for help. Well, we like to say things like, well, if you need anything, just let me know. Right. And then we kind of back off. And when they never say anything, we're like, oh, well, I guess, everything's taken care of. Well, the person is too tired to everything to think about what they needed. I know for me, when I was in that situation, like I wasn't able to drive at first. I needed someone to take my kids places, and it was so hard. What I love now is to look back at that memory is I felt like the person that could do absolutely nothing. I was worthless, right? That's how I felt. My kids kind of remember it differently. Like mom was sitting in the chair, like we still did school. They came to me. I read to them. We snuggled. Like, mom wasn't moving. I'm not the type of person that just sits and doesn't move. Right. So they had my attention. So actually to them, it wasn't necessarily this time that I remember it to be, right? Like it was awful because I had no energy and all the thoughts that were going through my head. But going back to people, I think because we're afraid, like your friends that see this person, this friend of yours that, has breast cancer, they're like, what if it was me? So if I just pretend like
talked all about it, we talked about that. And because I was sick, I'm not good at asking people for help, but I knew that I needed rides to the doctor. My husband was traveling. So my sister came out, but I'm Italian. So food is number one. When you're sick, you don't feel like cooking healthy food. So you need soup. So the first thing I did was make soup before I left. I took care of myself like I was being my own nurse, right? And so I give people tips, like if somebody then we lost my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my father, my dad came to visit and he had lung clots and I had to take care of him for 5 months. So it's been a hell of a ride. But what I'm trying to say to these people that are listening, that there's people like you to help you get in balance with yourself first, so that you have the energy to give. to your
Exactly.
family, to your work, to your clients, to your
Yeah.
friends, and to the loved ones in our lives. Now, COVID, I think, has made us love deeper, and I'm excited about it. Like,
Yeah.
even though it sucks to be stuck at home, you're forced to look at the people that are in your life that you
Yeah.
don't even hardly know. I mean, I did a TEDx talk about parents and their teens. It's called The Power of Your Love Lineage. The
Mhm.
teenagers have a whole new way of communication that their parents, half of them, don't even know about or understand,
Right.
and they spend 7 to 9 hours on their phone or their computer all day.
Yeah.
So how are they supposed to learn about relationships and grow and learn to cook and be a responsible person if the parents aren't taking control? And that leads to a level of stress for parents. Now, your kids are a little bit older,
Yeah.
but the younger generation is on a complete different trajectory, and it stresses the parents out that I talk to. What am I going to do with my kids? You got to be aware of what they're doing, And so I don't know, all of these things are still about the core of a parent or a woman or a man, single or married, taking care of yourself. Now, married people, you're taking care of not only yourself, your children, and your spouse, and your dogs, and your laundry, and all that. And
Yeah.
it's a juggling thing. It is a little bit overwhelming. But you have 3 kids. I don't have any kids, and I still feel that. So
Well,
how the emotions that people feel from the
mhm.
overwhelm, how do you get over that overwhelming feeling to get back into the joy of the pink? Give back to the family with
Right.
joy, because some mothers are like, the hell with all this, I'm done. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm done. My husband doesn't help, the kids don't help, I'm done. How
Yeah.
can they kind of lead their family into helping them?
Right. Well, when you were saying all that, it reminded me of something that I actually wrote in my book. And EX, I think of as exercise, but one of the things that I really learned is it's also us being an example. So I know for me, I'm really good at telling people what to do. I grew up being very bossy, right? No problem telling everybody else what to do. But people don't do what you say, right? People do what you do. And when I looked at, yes, I have boys, but when I really looked at my daughter and that, when I was going through that process of not taking care of myself, she was watching that. Like, what is she learning from that? And knowing that I needed to be an example for her because I didn't want her to be a mom that's not taking care of herself. And even though she's doing everything for her children the best she could, one of the things that she could be doing is helping them. So my kids are very independent. My kids know how to cook. My kids know how to clean. Whether or not they do it or not is a different story, but they know how to do it. Um, but I think that looking at it as an example, and I really think for marriages too, there's this scripture that I don't know exactly what it is in the Bible, but it talks about how when a wife is telling their husbands what to do, it sounds like a dripping faucet, something like that, right? Um, we have a tendency to want to tell them to do things that we're not even doing ourselves, drink more water, exercise, do that. Instead, what I found is when I start doing those things, then I see that happening in my family. And, having homeschooled for so many years and then everybody in 2020 being thrown into more or less this homeschooling environment, they were coming to me and they're like, I don't see how you do it. I can't spend all day with my kids. And I'm like, yeah, I've been spending all day with my kids since they were born, and they want to know how to get them to do their homework. And I'm like, well, really, it starts with having that relationship. This really isn't about school. The problems you're having with your kids isn't the school, right? The problem is the relationship that now you're spending all day with them and they're not wanting to do what you're asking them to do, which is doing what the school's asking them to do, right? And visually seeing that. And it goes back to love, it goes back to relationships. And, to say, oh, you're just going to get your kids to do their school when they're not used to having that discussion with you, right? Like you said,
They
like,
hide it. They do as many kids do minimal. At least
yeah,
this is what I'm hearing from parents. But this exceptional life that you're talking about, people are like, how am I going to achieve that if they don't listen and they're being bad? So, but it's
right,
really still about them reflecting on themselves. Maybe it's a wake up call to see how they haven't been really present.
yeah,
That's what I've noticed, is that in my messages over this last 6 months to a year has been, let's go for deeper love. Let's try and get to know our kids better. Have the kids connect with their grandparents and ask stories about how they grew up to really learn, about the way they were wired, because we're all wired a certain way from somewhere,
Right.
So I have a sister that had an old boyfriend of hers, and he's very like a hermit now, and his kids are half time with his wife and half time with him. And the kids said to her, he doesn't know how to socialize because everything was revolved around his family. And then when that was taken away, he doesn't know how to communicate or express his
Right.
feelings of fun because he always just took care of the family, right? So sometimes when you're separated, your kids leave the nest, or so
Yeah.
all these points all relate to the exceptional life, but it's still up to the person that's listening to this to learn your methods to
Right.
balance yourself, whether it's, learning from your book. In love, they learn from my book, because most
Right.
of them they squeeze love in like it's like a drink of water. I think I'm going to maybe look on the dating app for a minute, and they don't focus on that. Like if they're not focused on your exceptional, do you want exceptional life? Do you want exceptional love? Do you want that balance? Then you
Right.
need to focus on that and make it like a new experimental, like look at yourself. How
Yeah.
are you doing in this particular area? So that's why yours has to do with the career, and is it really balancing with all the other aspects? And mine is how that's out of balance with relationships. So it really
Yeah.
does work together.
Well,
It really
one of the
does.
things one of the things I say is, people people look at exceptional and they're like thinking perfect, and exceptional is not perfect, but we have a choice every, I say 2.5 seconds, and that's just a number that I kind of got from, they say we have about 60,000 thoughts in our head at a, that's going through our head. They say 80% of that's negative. But every time before we do something, whether it's grab the phone instead of having the conversation with our spouse, right? Instead of watching TV or going for a walk, whatever it is, that is a choice that we're making. And I say normal to exceptional is about 2.5 seconds, right? I can sit here and I can go this or this. A lot of times we choose the normal road, but we don't have to. I say I wake up like everybody else in the morning, right? Put my pants on the same way as everybody else. The difference is I decide whether or not I'm going to go down the normal road. And some days I do. I'm saying it right now. There are days that I do not make the best choices, right? And there are other days that I look and go, this is not the road I want to go down. I've been down that road. I know what that road looks like. I've read the research. I know that if I continue to travel down that road, doing those things or not doing certain things, right? That's the road that I'm going to be traveling. And I want something different. I want to choose this road right here. It may not be the road everybody else is going down. It might not be the popular road. It might not be necessarily the easy road, but it has the destination that I want to go towards, and I'm worth it, right? I'm worth taking that road right now and saying no to whatever normal thing is over here that everybody else is doing and everybody else is saying is grand. I'm going to choose different.
I like that. And I do that myself. I do. I don't know if you're on this Clubhouse thing. It's this new thing.
I just got an
Oh,
invitation today, so I'm
holy crapola. It's like having, people just connecting with you from all over the world. And you can choose to go on the things that make you or align with your thoughts and the things you want to learn. So I really like it, but it's frenetic a little bit. It's a little bit frenetic because it takes you right. You could go into that and just forget everything else. So I'm really into taking care of the people that are in my close realm. And then during a certain amount of my time. And then my clients have their time, and I really give myself 100%. So I say, give yourself 100% to have extraordinary love. And it sounds like you have that balance between the work and play. And most people are still working on it. So I would highly advise you to pick up this wise woman's book, because she's a mother. She's gone through all sorts of things, just like we all have. But when you have those little nuggets of things to go back to, it'll help you to stay in that flow. And that is what Get Real About Love is, getting real with yourself. about being out of sync or out of balance with your life. And before we sign off, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your relationship, because you've been
Yeah.
married, and we were going to talk about your husband and your extraordinary, I call it, I help people to find extraordinary love. I figure I waited all this time, and if I'm going to do this, I want to try and have the most extraordinary experience with my husband. So you use exceptional, I use extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
So what are your tips for keeping your marriage and your children and all of you guys, together and feeling that love bond that you have?
Right. Um, I would say respect, and giving each other that space to do what it is that we love to do. Some of those things are together. We love to travel. We bought an RV back in March of 2019, and we did some traveling. Um, Lots of places that we both like to see, and hiking and doing. But then we also have things that we don't necessarily do together. He loves to golf. I fall asleep watching golf on TV, but I understand now. I did not understand in my 20s, but I understand now that that is one of his ways to let off steam. That's one of his stress relievers. And I don't want him to feel guilty for going out and playing golf for 4 hours with the guys. Though I may have done that in the early days, just like the things that I love to do. So, whether it's spending time with friends or just reading a book in a hammock. Like, we have places in our front yard and our backyard that my husband's put hammocks because he knows I love a hammock. So, being respectful that what I like to do may not be what you like to do, and that's okay. You can do what you want to do and then still meet together and have the things that we enjoy together and do that. I feel has really helped our marriage. And one of the things that we did several years ago is strength finders. I don't know if you've ever heard of strength finders before, but it goes over your different strengths. And one of the things that I found that probably got on my nerves the most about my husband are the things that are my strengths, right? So I have strengths and I have weaknesses. And my husband and I are completely opposite. His strengths are my weaknesses, and my weaknesses are his strengths. And I had a coach tell me that that's why we need each other. If his strengths and my strengths were the same, we would need each other. And it changed the way I looked at my husband, because then instead of it being that, he was weaker in this area and like he needs to do better in this area, why? I already have that taken care of. These things that I'm weaker on, instead of me trying to get it up here, he can take care of that, right? And so we need each other. We're a couple, we're one together. And that really just changed, like, the little things. Not to say that things don't ever get on our nerves. I'm sure there's things I do that get on
We all have them.
right. But it really changed it, because I was like, I don't need to be married to someone just like me. Thank goodness, because we would not have made it the 28 years if we were just alike, right? We needed each other. I call him my peace and calm. He's the one that when I'm up here, wherever, he brings me down and grounds me. And because I'm the one that's up and going, I'm the one that kind of pulls him along. And so that helps us keep going on this journey together that the Lord's put us on. I shared, with you when we were talking about couples. I say I kind of manifested him, because the first day of my freshman year, or both of our freshman year at the University of Oklahoma, I was sitting in a class, and this girl next to me was like, well, do you have a boyfriend? I'm like, no, I've never really dated. And she's like, I mean, this is a room full of people, probably 250 people. And she said, well, would you go out with any of these guys? And I went, I would go out with him, who I married. I would go out with him, who we became really good friends, but he ended up getting kicked out of school for stealing stereos out of cars. So he wasn't a good pick. And I said, or him, and he actually played at the piano bar at my bachelorette party before I married my husband. But
Oh, so cool. I love that story.
yeah, so when I picked him out, I was like, that he's why I thought he was the one, why he was the first one, I don't know. Didn't get to meet him for a good 2.5 months. He walked into the very first party I ever went to, because I was not a party girl. I went to school to become a physical therapist. I had my mind on my goal. He walks in and I said, "Hey, you're in my zoology class." And all he knew is, yes, there's about 250 people in that class, had never seen her or known me, and sat down and we started talking and realized some things that we had in common, and people that we both knew. Both of us have the same middle name, Jean, like just, things like that. And it still took another 2 months because he actually had a girlfriend. Took another 2 months before he asked to borrow my notes from zoology class. We started talking and we have been together ever since. So
That's a great story. People, you never know where you're going to find love or where you're going to learn about these lessons that we're talking about, balance. Everybody's got a great story. That's why I love to talk to people, not only that have the tools that I really believe in
yeah,
to make love exceptional and, your life exceptional
yeah,
or extraordinary. You have to have those things or your life will go crazy. You got to stay in balance. So I'd highly recommend that you pick up her book, and please tell us the name and show it to us one more time so they can see it and they can get it on Amazon. So go
it
ahead,
is.
say it.
It
It
is
is
bye bye normal, hello exceptional, living a life of less stress and more energy. And truthfully, if you follow the steps, these are steps not only I have followed, but the people I've worked with, the women I've worked with for the last 10 years, um, every single one of them say, when I do the things, right? And they're things for themselves and for others, they have more energy. And everyone thinks that if they do these things, they'll have less energy, but they put them into effect. Energy begets energy. It's amazing when we put those things into effect, how our life changes.
Shauna, thank you for this great interview. And I hope that all of you will check her out. And in this video, you're going to see her social media. You can check her there. You can get her book online. And if any of you are interested, I'm sure she's got classes and all sorts of stuff coming up, just like myself. I help people to get ready for love. And a lot of it does have to do with energy and being organized and getting them their space and their heart and everything open. So these two books would really help you to get yourself in balance and prepared to have not only an extraordinary life, but an exceptional life. And so that's why I wanted to have her here today. I really thank you for sharing your stories. And for anyone out there, you can contact her. I'm sure she has all sorts of free. Do you have any gifts or anything to give away
Yeah.
today?
So I am happy for people to go to my website, shawnacale.com. I have a free top 10 energy zappers plus simple solutions that they can get on my website.
Great. I'm going to have to sign up for that one. I have something similar to that. That's so cool because people don't realize the things that are zapping them. And I'm super excited for you and
Thank
your
you.
quest. And I'm so glad to hear your love story because I mean, the same thing with me. I met my husband in my 20s at a wedding because I do people's images and their makeovers and their clothes, and I design gowns, weddings, and that was what I originally did.
Yeah.
And this woman who was getting married was my husband's cousin. And he came through the receiving line, and I was her maid of honor. And I shook his hand and I looked up and I said, "Wow." I said, "I'm going to marry him someday." And then I moved to California from Delaware. And it took my mother's passing for me to eventually go back. And he had seen me on television and heard me on radio and seen my books and things like that through the years in my hometown. They used to make a big hoo-ha about me coming home. And this one, when I came back, my mom passed in May. I came back for my aunt who had to cancel her wedding. And when I came back, I did a big rapid dating event in my hometown, and we ended up magically running into each other. So if you want to see my love story and learn more, you'll have all the information to find Shauna and about her work and also mine. I help people to open their hearts to love. And I really do believe that what she is sharing today is a very important aspect of staying in balance, keeping your energy up so that you can magnetize love and keep it in balance and in check. So thank you again, Shauna, and thank you for tuning in to Get Real About Love. And you're welcome to contact me for a free consultation to find out what could be blocking you from finding extraordinary love. We'll be seeing you soon with more amazing guests and also love stories. So Shawana, God bless you on your path. It sounds like you've been led by the Spirit to do what you're doing. And I'm really grateful that we had this time together today. So
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you. And I'm going to be picking up your book myself. And I would advise anybody out there to do the same and get in touch with her for her free gifts. We'll talk to you soon. This is Renee Piani again, the Love Designer, your host of Get Real About Love. Keep your heart open to love because anything is possible with an open heart. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.